Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us virtually for the Enrollment Marketing 101 presentation today. I hope everyone is staying safe and sane and healthy as possible, and that you're able to keep the kiddos entertained and learning as best possible as we all go through this virtual conference together. So today we're going to learn how to attract and engage potential families and their students, and why me is sometimes I often wonder, what the heck, how come I am the one teaching this? And I will tell you in just a second. My background is that I've been a technology marketer for many, many years. I've had a lot of education clients like NWEA, Dreambox Learning, Learning.com, K12.com, Casey Distance Learning, etc. And that's really where my heart over the last probably 15 years has been, is in the education and technology space. I have also been a student of social media. My company was dragged into social media very, very early on when it was just blogs that were out there. I wrote a blog that was pretty highly regarded, luckily, from the business community back in the day. And I have, again, led enrollments for a couple of online schools. And I teach PR at the Portland State University's online school myself, so I'm lucky enough to participate there. And I know we're all kind of dealing with how to handle remote learning right now. So I'm well aware of the challenges that we all have. And really, for the last couple of years, I've been leading marketing and enrollment marketing for Charter School Capital, which has really brought together a lot of things over my career, and I'm delighted to be here speaking to you today. And more than anything, I really love charter school leaders. Had I been able to have charter schools when I was young, growing up, I think it's hard to imagine what my career could have been or my life could have been. I've had a great one, but charter schools fill a need for students that I just appreciate so much. And your work and what you do is incredibly complex. And I've got this kind of wild picture of a brain right here. As we go through enrollment marketing, we really need to be speaking to the very, very back of the brain, the reptilian brain, because that's where people make decisions. And most decisions are emotional. And so as we go through this presentation, I really want you to focus on the fact that you are trying to appeal to, when we're doing enrollment marketing or any kind of community activism, we're trying to appeal to the emotional side of the brain. And by the way, your work is so complex, we recognize the fact that most people cannot grasp either teaching children or being able to do enrollment marketing at the same time. And our goal here is to give you some tools that you can work with that make it easier for you as a school leader to help drive others in helping you, staff, volunteers, sometimes students themselves, so that you can attract and engage families, especially from an online perspective, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. So what we're going to cover in this session, what is enrollment marketing and kind of the tools that you use, being able to create strategies and tactics around it. Some of these strategies you'll be able to do yourselves. Some of these things you're going to need to get help with. And what we hope to do here is give you kind of an overview so that if you do need to ask for help, you can know who to go to and the kinds of questions to ask. And by the way, I will give you my contact information at the very end of this. I know we're virtual, so you're welcome to reach out, ask questions. We can post on a blog about the questions that are being answered, that are driven from this, and I'm quite happy to do so. All right? Okay, so what is enrollment marketing? It is, and this is what marketers use, technologists use, it's talking to just the right person at just the right time in just the right way. So you have to be accessible in these days via mobile. Your website has to be found on a mobile search. It has to be beautifully displayed when parents or caregivers get to the website so they understand how to connect with you, and be meaningful in a way that it makes it makes you come across to the parent or caregiver in a way that they say, I want my child to be a part of that. It can also, as a kind of an adjunct, give you an opportunity to raise community awareness, help you with your fundraising efforts because people are seeing stories of your school, et cetera, in addition to building your enrollment. And then finally, you can get support from your community as a result of really good marketing and enrollment marketing. So think about, if you're trying to move right now, community leaders to help you find hotspots for kids who are being underserved traditionally by internet providers, that kind of thing. Enrollment marketing, and I'll drop the word enrollment there, but using these tactics and tools can give you the ability to better connect with those who can help your school out. All right, and with that, we're going to start with the basics, the things that you do first in terms of enrollment marketing, and I call these things story arcs. What we want to do is use your charter, use your purpose, use your school's meaning to come up with 3 or 4 stories that you can tell to your community all season long, all school year long, all summer long, so that you can drive interest in the school. So what you have to do to create these story arcs are really to understand, why is your school different? How is it different from the other traditional public schools in the area? If you have other charter schools in the area, I really want you to think about, how is it that you serve your kids differently? And be able to, in a sentence or two, and I'll show you some examples of story arcs, describe that uniqueness. And then as you have your story arcs created, talk about them with your internal school community, your staff, your teachers, people who are volunteers for the school, and make sure that they both accept the fact that these are your true story arcs that you want to be telling, that they will support the stories that you're telling, and that they can tell them themselves. Because what we're trying to do is build community around what you're saying, and we're getting everybody together, your board members, your volunteers, the parents, to be able to speak to these 3 or 4 story arcs during the school year. Okay, here are a couple of examples. Here, and you know, a little marketing spin on them, if you can do that. And you probably have someone on your board, pardon me, who could help you with this. Perhaps somebody who is a marketer by trade or a writer by trade. It's really helpful to bring somebody in from the outside who can help you craft 3 meaningful sentences in this case. First one, A for academics. The state gave our district an A rating. That is something that would appeal to a parent, right? So that is a story arc as a great example. Here's another one. Building endless opportunities through education, leadership, sports, music, art, and theater. That gives a parent a potential idea of what the breadth of services they might get through your school. You probably have a unique learning pedagogy or methodology that you can share, and it's nice to have different stories. So academics, that is how well your students do, the kinds of opportunities you've got to give students and their families, really important. And then here's one that seems to resonate for a lot of schools right now, a safe and secure learning environment, because in this case, this is a school that has small classrooms. They're in settings that are very private. And so it's a really nice way to describe that a parent will feel comfort coming to your school because of the way that you have structured the physical area of your school. So think about your school, think about how you might tell some stories around 3 or 4 different things that you'll just kind of build on over time. And this is how this A-rated academic story arc might play out in a social media post, for example. Really sorry, guys. For some reason, every time I hit one forward on the old machine here, it just takes you forward a couple of times. But we'll just keep going. Here, in this case, we say, when does education matter most? Elementary, middle, or high school? We think it's all three. If you think it's all three, we agree. High quality education is always a top priority. That's why we deliver rigorous traditional curriculum at all three of our free charter schools in our A-rated district. Learn more about us and our commitment to every student in our schools. Set up a tour today. So that's how we play out the A for Academic story arc. And we have pictures of kids who are doing academic things. All right? I hope that makes sense to everybody. So think about the story arcs, think about how you're going to deliver them consistently, and you can have little strains of these story arcs go through social media, on your website, in email, in newsletters, in brochures, etc., as you go through the enrollment season. All right, that's number one, get your story arcs. Number two, it's really important that you really understand your audience. Your audience, especially if you have schools that serve the younger grades, are going to be millennial moms and dads. You also might be talking to grandparents or other caregivers who are taking care of the kiddos. So they get their information very differently. If you think about the difference between a millennial and either a Gen Xer or a Boomer, very different ways of getting information. You have to really pay attention to that. Different language learners, those kinds of things are really important to consider. There are also other constituents that you should be reaching with these story arcs: press and influencers, your boards of directors, and importantly, especially for the older grades, your students. Because especially in high school, there's a lot of peer pressure to go to the high school that their friends go to. So you want to make sure that you're appealing to all of these constituencies. And when I say appealing to, I want you to really kind of think about how they get their information, whether it be through a laptop, a mobile phone, word of mouth, friends, a brochure hanging up in a grocery store, those kinds of things. And think about how you're trying to reach them and go about it in the way that they like to be reached. It's a lot of work, but if you go about this kind of work, it will be very successful for you. All right. And then you've got your stories, you kind of know who you're talking to, build a list. And this is something that one of your volunteers is probably really good at. We make our lists, we put them up into a Google spreadsheet, and we just get going and start running down the list and making sure that somebody's got that as an action, there's a timeline, and that we mark them off when we're done. Sounds really kind of rudimentary, but honestly, it keeps everybody on track. And if you review your work list very, very regularly, you're going to be great, because we've got to keep things, this train's got to move fast, all right? Know what you're going to need to do. Here's a good list to get started. Know who's going to be responsible for it, when it's due, and checking it off, all right? So you got your story arcs, you know who you're talking to, and you've kind of got a plan. You've got the outline of a plan, what you're going to say when. And I know I breezed through that really fast, but I hope as educators and as leaders, you will be able to fill in some of the blanks. And again, if you can't, send me a note. We'll answer it in a blog. How about that? So now we're going to go through different strategies and tactics for getting the word out. And first, in terms of strategies and tactics, I want to make sure that everybody is aware of, we need to start kind of high level and then work down to getting people to register, to get their kids into the school, and then to talk about your school. So we talk a little bit about the marketing funnel, and these are example questions that people are asking at different stages of becoming more aware and engaged with you. At the very top of the funnel is awareness. I've heard of this school. Who is this school? What do they stand for? Story arcs come in here. Engagement is, I think I might be interested in sending my child to that school. Who might I talk to there? How easy is it to find their phone number? Where are they located? And then after conversations with someone at the school, which is very, very important, people like making decisions with other people that they like. There's the conversion part of the marketing funnel where we're filtering out families and people right and left as we move down towards the bottom of the funnel. The conversion is, I really think I'd like to have my child go to your school. And then after they've gotten enrolled and they've been at your school for a while, then we turn on the loyalty phase, which is really where I want to recommend this school, my child's school, to other people in my area. And that is where the references and the referrals come in. And at that point, you're growing, you're getting, your classes are full. And if you don't have plans for huge growth or adding more classrooms, year after year after year, you'll become stable. And then you will have to worry less about the marketing part and those referrals, those word of mouth parents, are invaluable there. So we need to plan activities at every stage of the marketing funnel. So at the top of the funnel, the most important things that you've got are your website, being able to show up in search, and sometimes, if you can afford it, putting ads out, especially online, especially if you're going to look for these, trying to find millennial moms and dads. They are looking online. Putting ads on the radio is probably not going to work for them, but being able to find your school online is going to be the most important thing. From an engagement and a conversion tactic area, the best tools you can have to use are email, which is very effective in getting information out quickly, having it being consumed easily, passing it along to others. Social media, we all know how important social is right now, especially as we're sheltering in place or maintaining social distancing. Social media is a tool that actually connects people, and we're relying on that more and more as we enter into this enrollment season. So leverage social media appropriately as we get people more and more interested in the school. And then certainly school tours, this is where that engagement and conversion really has to happen, because people need to see your school, they need to take a tour, they need to meet staff, etc. And then finally, in the loyalty area and in the areas of attracting more people, events are priceless because it's person to person in general. Again, a little bit more virtual these days, but we can all feel that missing sense of, I really wish I could get together in a room with these people and talk to them. So that is, the events are things that can really build loyalty, build word of mouth, and allow people to invite friends to see your school, etc. So a mixture of all these things is very, very important as you're doing your enrollment marketing and you're planning them. All right. So I'm going to walk through each one of these things quickly. And again, at the end of this, if you have questions, send them our way and we will post a blog post to answer them. It's the best way we can do it right now. So think about your website as your home base. It has to be something that is inviting, that reflects your school, reflects at first sight what your school is about. So in this example, this is a website for a STEAM school. It happens to be in Oregon. And at first glance, you see the box of crayons and you think, this might be either something for my child, or maybe I might want to know more. If your child is really into athletics, this may not be the very best way to represent your school to somebody who is looking for an athletic program. So again, think of how your website reflects what's going on inside your school. And if you get nothing more from this presentation than anything, look at your website. This is the one from Portland. As you can see in the little red box here, this site is called Not Secure, and this is because The certification for the site, it's a little snippet of software, hasn't been set up properly. You can tell when a site has been set up properly if you take a look at the green box down below. This is for the CCSA. Thank you for hosting this. There is a nice little lock there. And what that tells the Googles basically, is that your site, if it's locked and secure, it will send more visitors there than if your site is not locked and secure. So for example, if you'd like to put up an enrollment form on your website versus handing out paper forms, your site needs to be secure before you can do that. When you are showing up in Google results, if people type in, charter school near me, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, if your site is not secure, Google is going to pull other schools up higher such that you will not show up on the first page of search. So it's an easy technology fix. It doesn't cost much at all. I think at one point there was one school that I've worked with in the past who had to pay $40 to get this security system set up. So make sure you do this first. Otherwise, you're going to be missing a lot of traffic from Google or other search engines, and you're basically invisible to those who are searching for you on the web. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so you've secured your website. Your website should quickly answer the following questions. Who is this school for? Why should I choose this school? What's the address and phone number of this school? Most people who are actually searching for locations oftentimes are on their phone, and if your phone number and address don't show up on the front page, if you have to scroll or go through places to find it from your phone, you're not going to capture their attention and keep it. They have to be really driven to find you if they have to go through several pages. And I think the average attention span of an adult these days is about 7 seconds, I think. So make it easy for people to deal with your school and the information that you have to give. Look at it through that lens. What grades do you serve? If I can't tell that, by quickly looking at your website, what grades you serve, then we've got a problem. When do you start enrolling? How can I get in touch with you? How can I arrange a visit? Those are really important things to think about. And I'd like you to look at your website and make sure that it quickly answers those questions. Many schools do a great job of it. Just look at it through new parents' eyes. And then give people really clear options to engage with you. Open houses, list them, put a calendar of events up there. Make sure they have the ability to, talk to somebody at the school, or make it really easy from your contact us page to request more information. So just remember that your website is just a foundational piece that needs to represent your school really well. This may take a little work, but it also might be just a little bit of tweaking here and there such that you can get it up to speed. But these are the things that your website should represent very, very quickly. There's a checklist. Make it secure. Answer the new parent kinds of questions very, very quickly. Make it easy to enroll with you. Have it very explicit. Make it mobile, because those millennial parents are going to be on their mobile phones. They're not going to be connected to a landline at all. And in this additional resources box here, I've listed some nice website software that make it real easy to have a website that looks great on mobile phones as well as on your laptop or traditional computer devices. Squarespace, Wix, Brand Genie, the big W is WordPress. Those are really good web tools, foundational tools to work with. And there are many others. There are a lot of others that are specific to the education space, but they don't need to be. If you're looking at a new website, you don't need to go necessarily to only education web providers, because WordPress and some of these others have really nice what they call plugins that allow you to do many of the things that would be custom. And back in the day, that was harder to do, but now it's very, very simple. So there's your web checklist. And again, I want to make the case for mobile. I just thought it was really interesting. Mobile search surpassed desktop search 5 years ago now, I believe it was, back in 6 years, back in 2014. And it's just grown exponentially. So make sure that you show up well on mobile. Check out your website on your mobile phone and just make sure you can see everything the way it should look. I've seen a lot of broken sites on mobile, unfortunately. And now, as we talk about searching a little bit, I wanted to talk about the concept of new parents, new caregivers, new guardians may not know the name of your school. So they might be typing in Google saying charter school near me, or best charter school near me, or something like that, because the near me searches, as you can tell, this shows Google interest over time, have just exploded in the past 5 years or so with mobile. Okay, so make sure that, and as we talk about search, we're going to be talking about how to get into those charter school near me searches, because people may not know, again, exactly what your school is called. All right. Lots of states, for some reason, especially in the South, are looking for places near me. It's really interesting to me that some of these southern states, in California, it actually hasn't shown up as much, but it's exploded in the South, which is fascinating to me. I'm a kind of a geek about technology like that. So here's an example of a charter school near me typical search. The first thing you see that comes up is a big box with a map, and that is what we call a Google My Business result. You, with your website, probably have a Google My Business web area. It's a little tool in the back end of your site that, or with Google actually, not in your site, but with Google, that you need to fill out, make sure that it's fully filled out so that it's possible for you to show up in this big map area with a pin right at your school and a ranking. Now, the way that you get into here, fill out your Google My Business area of your Google accounts. Make sure that parents are rating and ranking your school actively. That's very important because as you can see, those with very active parents who are willing to rank a school are going to show up in this results, because Google wants to show you very valid, very thriving businesses, because they want you to continue to use them. Okay, and then way down at the bottom of this page, you'll see an organic result, which is the first possible non-paid or not Google My Business result there. And if you get there, you're in the sweet spot, all right? Or if you get into this big local search box with the map. So if we change this slightly and we say best charter school near me, this is where ads start showing up. And I wanted to show you this paid ad by one of the large virtual schools around. I've done these screenshots here from Portland, Oregon, which is where charter school capital is. But you can see ads start to show up above the Google My Business result when, and especially during high peak season of July, August for enrollment marketing. The ads are going to push everything even farther down on the page. So your organic search results may not even show up above the fold, which is what you can't even see them. So you're competing for some pretty precious space here with Google searches, because no one, I don't know if anybody in the audience has gone past page one of a Google search recently. I'd like to know about it. Send me a note, please. So how do you get into those kind of best searches, best of, those kinds of things? Again, get your parents to rate you on sites like Niche, greatschools.net, others. You have the ability to have parents review your school, and that really, really helps validate the search engines who are just trying to figure out which school is actually really, really good. And parent word of mouth, et cetera, is really how the search engine bots can tell. Get your parents to rank your schools, all right? So kind of, again, search is a really important tool. SEO stands for search engine optimization. It will help your website speak as well to the search engine bots as it does to new parents. And the way that you highly qualify for higher spot on the Google search page is great content that's fresh. If your site doesn't have updates regularly to it, Google won't pay any attention. If you don't have fresh content on your site regularly, the search engines stay away. They don't even index your site. And that means that you're not going to show up as well. If the engines index your site more often and more often and more often, they're getting more information about your school to deal up to parents. So the more content you've got that's relevant, that's good quality, the better off you're going to be with search. There's a whole science and an art around SEO. I'm very lightly touching on it. I would, if I were you, you're in California, you know a lot of technology workers, get their help in getting into shape for a search engine. All right. Your search checklist, organic search is free. You don't have to pay for ads, but really, they are the most quality searches, quality results, quality driver of parent interest that you can possibly get. So make sure that you have a secure website, make sure it's mobile optimized, that you have really nice site navigation, that your content is good. If you can get set up in Google My Business, make sure you do. And then I'm going to say it again, get your staff and your parents and students, past students, alumni to review your school. And then make sure you're on the right websites that will drive links to your site, niche.com, greatschools.net, etc. Here's some additional resources. Your page speed is important if you've got really heavy load speeds for pictures, big pictures, and it takes a long time to load your site. Google's not going to give you very high quality remarks for that, and so not so good. You got to get your site to quickly load, display properly. Google My Business, I've already talked about. Yoast is a plugin for WordPress that allows you to quickly optimize your site for nice phrases and things like that. And then Google Trends, that was that near me search thing that I showed you. It's a really cool tool that allows you to see how people in your area are actually searching for things like charter schools. If it's not a very common search, it doesn't show up very often, but play around with Google Trends. It can help you with understanding how people are really thinking about things as time goes by. I geek out a little bit about it, so I like to talk about it, but for your use, that would be the last thing I say you should go do, unless you're in the mood to play. So, paid media. If you can afford it, it may not be a bad idea, especially as you're working on your search engine optimization and getting people to come and validate your school with rankings, things like that. You can use paid media on Google, on Facebook, on Instagram. You can spend money. It can happen real quickly, so you have to be very careful. But it can be very effective to help get your school the visibility it needs, especially in a market that could be crowded. All right. I'm talking a lot about online here. Paid media can be done, radio advertisements, newspaper advertisements, etc. But again, remember your audience. it's really difficult to break through, even in radio, and make the spend make sense. So I would focus, if I were you, you're paid, if you have any budget at all, do it online. So again, the way that paid media works is you need to bid on keywords. So you can set a dollar amount per day, week, or month that you want to spend, and it won't let you spend any more than that. So make sure that you're kind of throttling how much you're spending at the very beginning, so you learn a little bit more about what is working for you. But there are good keyword examples, like STEM charter school, or Atlanta charter school. You can buy those on those. Like this one is best charter school near me. Here it is. Connections Academy is buying that phrase, and they're willing to pay some money. And I will only get charged if someone clicks on that ad. If no one clicks on that ad, I have just a beautiful ad up there that everybody's looking at that says, oh, maybe my school name could be there. All right. But again, when they click on the ad, it may charge you $3 in January, but it also might charge you $25 in August. So you have to be careful, because this is an auction. And so people are willing to pay more for searches for ads, especially as the hype of the season heats up. All right. There are also other options for paid media. I like the idea, especially for new families moving into the area, to maybe check out the mover packets that you get. And this is an example of a screenshot of one where, everybody who buys a new house or gets a new apartment, gets a new address, gets one of these mover packets. Now, they're not very expensive, and that the reason why is a lot of people don't even go through them. So, test out different things depending on how much money you have to play with. There's a website called Nextdoor. Obviously, you probably know about that. They start to offer ads, and these lesser known places, but places where people are starting to go a little bit more often to check out what's happening in their areas. Those kinds of places are the ads that are going to be less expensive than buying an ad on Google, for example. So try a few things. We've been successful too with direct mail and postcards to different families. So you might consider that if you've got a nice list of of neighborhoods nearby where you can actually get a postcard to a family. You might test something like that. The things that I don't recommend spending money on are, newspapers right now, radio websites. I've just heard of more school leaders spending money on radio, hoping that all the extra things that they throw in are going to pay for themselves for you. And I just don't. I haven't heard, especially recently, them working. All right. So there you go. So paid media, make sure you identify your budget. If you have $500 to spend for a month, then start slow. Start with $10 a day, and then as you start to ratchet it up, spend a little bit more when you realize, okay, I can spend $3 on best charter school near me in this zip code area during this time frame. Or my Facebook ads are working really well. So make sure that you are being very careful at the beginning, so that you can preserve whatever budget you have for paid media, if you have any at all, and watch it like a hawk. Most of these ad platforms have the ability to limit how much you spend. So Google AdWords, there's Bing ads, Yahoo. Honestly, most people search, unless you live around the Seattle area and work for Microsoft. Most people do use Google. So that is a nice place to start if you're going to. I also recommend, seriously, Facebook, Instagram, good places to have your money go a little bit further. All right. I mentioned Facebook and Instagram. Social media. All right. And I know this is an area that can be really nerve-wracking, kind of exciting. I just want people to know that parents get a lot of their information using social media, but in the last few years, and I think you'll probably all recognize why, in an age right now trust in social media is waning, although right now, with social media connecting so many families again, I'm actually thinking that trust in social media is going to go up a little bit again because that's what we have to do our connections. But advertising in social media has to be very, very careful. And the best thing you can do is tell your stories, those stories that you've been telling them through photos, through excellent copy, through the new parent's eyes, and really use social for that. And when I talk about brand new parent eyes, here's a school that we worked with in the past in Arizona, and what we have done is really try to make sure that their story arcs, which were largely sports focused, but also goal focused, etc., that every one of their social posts really reflected who they were inside. So with the goal of, and I said it at the very beginning, I want my child to be a part of that. So, as many photos of kids having fun, staff interacting with kids, those kinds of things, that's exactly what you want to be able to do for new parents. So where do these folks hang out? And again, if you're a millennial parent, you're not going to hang out on Facebook. You're going to hang out on Instagram. If you are trying to find, the older generations, of which I am one, generally they hang out on Facebook. I'm not one of those, but a lot of folks my age do. So make sure you're splitting your time between. YouTube is great if you've got nice video content. Twitter is a mystery to most folks. I actually really like it, but it's probably not the one that I would recommend. LinkedIn can be used to talk to your board members, other people in the community about kind of the business of running a school. But I would recommend both Instagram and Facebook for the most part. Pick one or two and make sure that's where the parents that you're trying to attract are hanging out, and then do it really well. And by doing it really well, the old adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words, really does come across critically in social media. We're all wired for eyes, and we're wired for these young faces. Let's use them to tell our stories. And again, don't be nervous if you can't do it all. Just do one or two really, really well. So for your checklist on social media, where does your audience hang out? Make sure that you are being very active there. Pick one or two areas, Facebook, Instagram, maybe Twitter, and post regularly, a couple of times a day if you can. If you can't do a couple times a day, do a couple times a week, whatever you can get done. And make sure that as you are posting, you are thinking a little bit about, especially in the older kids, if you're serving high school or even middle school kids, make sure that your posts are appealing to them as well. All right? Take a look through new parent eyes and new student eyes at your social media right now and see what you think about those. Make sure that you have, if you can, and most schools do have photo releases for their kiddos. Try and get those, but never post anything that you can't get a photo release for. I have to say that as a public service announcement. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I do want to say that. And then most importantly, I think, when in doubt, don't. I think that is a real underserved message today. If there's any hesitation that you feel about posting something on social media, don't do it. It'll save you. Resources that you can use to help you with managing your social media. There are these 4 resources we've listed here: Hootsuite, Buffer, Every Post, and CoSchedule. What that offers you the ability to do is plan out your posts. So you can get a Hootsuite free service and say, every Friday I want to post something about the weekend and what's going to happen, and or events on Tuesdays or something like that. So you can actually create your posts ahead of time and then stagger them out that way. Now, you don't want every post to be crafted really finely such that it doesn't feel like you're interacting with your community, but these tools really do help you if you know you've got an event coming up, or you know you've got a series of stories that you can tell. You can get them all set up and ready to go, and it really will save you time over time, and it'll allow you to be more active in social in a more planned way. Remember the calendar that we had at the beginning. You can use your calendar to drive your posts along the way. Email, really effective. People who opt in to your email are really highly engaged. We're moving down the funnel here. Email is a great way to stay in touch with people who are really engaged with your school, whether they have children or not. They can, send emails that you've created to their friends. It's a really, really nice system that most people really don't. They think more about the social media side of things or getting on search, but honest to goodness, old-fashioned email is still a really great way to stay in touch because you can track everything. And email is a very efficient way to get the word out, because a lot of email tools are very inexpensive if they charge you at all. So make sure, again, I'm going to bring it up again, make sure your email looks great on a mobile phone, because most people are really looking at their phones from email. Think about your own days. You probably don't sit down to a laptop very often. If you're lucky, you can, but most of us have our phones on us, and we stand in line at the checkout at the grocery store and we look at our email. So, be respectful of people's time. Make sure the fonts are big, minimum of 15 points. Make sure that you have nice images in your font, in your emails. Unsplash is a nice place to go to grab free images. There are other platforms that allow you to do that. Email platforms like, I'll show you a few of them in a minute, but MailChimp, others really can be set up very nicely, very easily, and you can create a template that will represent your school really well, and it's really nice. Now, you can't email just anybody. You can't scrape email addresses. You need to have people opt in to get emails from you, but you can ask them for them as you meet them, as you get to know people. Can I send you an email? And once they say yes and give you their email address, you can send them emails until they opt out. But you have to make sure you're keeping your email list clean. If somebody wants to say stop or opt out, you need to remove them immediately. And if they haven't opened your email or clicked on an email for like a year, you got to take them out of your list. And your email service provider platform, which we'll talk about in just a second, will help you make sure that you are keeping your email lists clean. All right, so your checklist here. Tell your story to the parents that you have so they can pass it along to others easily. Keep your lists really, really clean, because that'll keep you off the spam compliance lists, which is our spam non-compliance lists, which are really critical and very expensive. If you get caught spamming people, that's not a good thing. Use fun photos, get people's attentions with photos in email, and make sure that your reports on your email, in your email service provider, like Constant Contact or MailChimp or Campaign Monitor, there are a bunch of them out there. Make sure that you can look at the reports that are set up there, because they'll give you a lot of information about who's sharing your email, who's opening your email, who's not opening your email. So you need to pay attention to those kinds of things. All right, and events. These are things that you cut your teeth on. I've heard from a lot of school leaders that traditional public schools are really seeing what charter schools have been doing for a while with events and are starting to hold them themselves. So now I'm saying, okay, the traditional schools are coming in and starting to be better at holding events. We got to move to the web. We've got to move to the digital world. But keep your events, excuse me, because you start a personal relationship with everybody that you meet at an event, and that's really where parents are going to make their decisions as to whether to come to your school or not. You have to be able to offer plenty of options for face-to-face meetings, whether they be formal school tours every Tuesdays and Thursdays, or you have, community events in a bowling alley once in a while, or a coffee shop, or just have drop-in hours at your school. You have to make yourself available to have people come in and tour the school. Importantly, and I'm going to read this. I normally don't, but I'm going to read this. Real life experiences shape our thoughts and memories much more profoundly than anything we see or read. I know I just talked about us going to the digital world so that we can keep our edge from a marketing perspective vis-a-vis traditional public schools. However, never rely solely on digital, because we need to have those meaningful relationships with people in real life in order to have people make a decision towards your school. All right. So I feel kind of silly going through this list because most school leaders know how important this is, but we can get distracted sometimes, and other things come up. And by golly, we're in a place right now where we can't hold events. You know what we're doing for our clients, where we're helping them with enrollment marketing right now? We are actually creating virtual tours, virtual events. I mean, you're seeing, virtual happy hours amongst friends. You're seeing people get together to sing the same song. There's plenty that can be done here to connect people during this time. And soon we hope we'll be through this time so we can go back to person-to-person events. During January to April, I like enrollment events both at community spaces and at your school, because this is when the planner parents are out there. The more harried, like, oh my goodness, where's my child going to go to school? People in July and August are going to find you. But if you can capture those planner parents right away, that's really the time to have plenty of events for them to come and meet you in. All right. The event checklist, always get a place with great parking, please, when you can. Make sure that you have parents at your events if you possibly can. It's really nice to have the opportunity for parents to speak to other parents about their child's experience with your school. I would say test weekends and evenings. It's nice to have a regular cadence of events, but sometimes you might be surprised if you try something a little bit different. So test things. Make sure your event shows up on your website so that people can find that it's coming. You can publish your events on Facebook, on Instagram, and as a bonus, and this is really where we're talking about, appealing more to the kid, set up a geo filter on Facebook or Instagram so that when they do come to an event, they can find it and it'll appear on their phone, and that will make them feel like they're coming to a school that really knows how to appeal to them. It's a bonus, but it's a free and easy thing to do. So talk to one of your clever staff, or even in this case, this is one where you might talk to a high school student and ask how to set one up, and they'll help you, and you'll look pretty cool when you do that. All right, and so kind of in summary, if you do this right, everything is very, very measurable. So I've been working with a couple of schools where we actually had some really amazing results, and I'm going to offer you the opportunity to download this information's on our website at charterschoolcapital.org. But you can. I'm not going to read this page, but everything that we do from an online perspective is so very measurable. And the good news is, when you can measure stuff like this, you can tell what's going right and what's not going right, where we need to apply more pressure, where we need to apply more resources, etc. Okay, so the good news is, whatever you do online, you can actually see how that's working for you if you set it up the right way. Again, I really appreciate your time. I don't know. Did I not put my email address on this presentation? So I'm going to say it out loud. It's J Johnson, JOHNSON at charterschoolcapital.org. J Johnson at charterschoolcapital.org. If you have any questions, send them our way, and I will answer them in a blog post. And with that, I thank you for your time and attention today, and look forward to answering questions as we can.